Welcome back to the Thrive 45 Method podcast with me, your host, nutritionist Stacey Nicole Smith. And this is the space where we talk all things weight loss and wellness for the woman in perimenopause and menopause. Now, let's get started with today's episode. Now, how to lose weight in perimenopause and menopause as a woman over 45. It's such a big question because for two reasons. I generally see two things. So either the things you used to do before to lose weight are no longer working, or you've never had a weight issue in your life, but you seem to be gaining weight out of nowhere, even though you didn't change anything. And there's a lot of frustration because a lot of women think that you can't lose weight because you're doing all the old tricks, right? Generally, these are the ones. Severe calorie restriction, low carb diets, intermittent fasting. Those are the most common ones. And maybe they worked for you before when you were younger, short term or longer, but they're no longer working now. So you're thinking it's inevitable, you're going to gain weight. Here's the thing. It's not. The reason is because you're treating it, or we have been treating it, for example, treating it as a calorie issue. It's not a calorie issue, or treating it as a carb issue. It's not a carb issue. What's happening is our body is simply treating these foods differently. So it's a strategy mismatch. So what has happened is we're going into, perimenopause and then menopause. Our hormones are fluctuating, right? Estrogen and progesterone, cortisol is taking a front seat. And so with this, our body is treating food a little bit differently. So even though we can have the same inputs, we're getting a different result. So what most women will do is say, okay, I better drop my calories lower. I better eat less food. I better work out more because that's what we've been told. Burn off more than you intake, right? It's this thermodynamics thing. But here's the problem. When you have fluctuating hormones, that kind of goes out the window. So what do we do instead? Instead of having severe restriction, which is what a lot of women will turn to because it's what we've been told and what we've known, instead, it's not a calorie or carb issue, it's a hormone signaling issue. So instead, what we want to do is we want to go in to effectively lose weight at this age, and we want to adjust the hormone signaling. You're like, Stacey, that's crazy. I don't know how to do that. Well, when you have a basic understanding of it, it actually makes a lot of sense. So when we're going into these changes, we are more sensitive to stress. Cortisol tends to be higher, and we're more sensitive to blood sugar swings. So what we want to do is eat in a way that manages our blood sugar. Because you could be eating healthy foods, and I see this a lot, you could be eating healthy foods, but your body's not treating them as fat loss foods. So even though you're eating, I'm going to give you some examples. So even though you could be eating healthy, believe it or not, that could be triggering fat storage. And we want to trigger fat loss and using our food efficiently as fuel. So I'm going to give you an example of what this looks like and how to do it. So number one, let's say you are doing intermittent fasting. So you're not eating till, let's say, noon. And maybe it worked for you before, or you've seen something online that it works. Works great for a lot of things. Works great for men. Maybe it worked for us when we were younger. Maybe it works for some different things, but there's a time and place for everything. And for fat loss and perimenopause, intermittent fasting is not it because our cortisol is highest in the morning. Now, we're more sensitive to stress, right? So we want to manage that stress response. So our cortisol is highest in the morning. And so if we're not eating, that's raising cortisol even further. And that cortisol is known for putting fat on the belly, menopause belly, right? So how do we manage this? Simplest way is to balance your blood sugar, because by balancing your blood sugar first thing in the morning, that's going to help to cut through that cortisol, the menopause belly. So we want to balance our blood sugar first thing in the morning. How do we do that? You want to have around 30 grams of protein within an hour of waking up. So that's one. Now we are that, and believe it or not, that's going to help for the rest of your day too, as well. So what do we do after that? Well, we want to continue to balance our blood sugar, and we want to make sure we don't have food cravings, or we don't want to have dips in our energy, which a lot of women will experience at around 2, 3 in the afternoon. And that's a blood sugar issue. So by having that 30 grams of protein within an hour waking, that's going to help to balance out your blood sugar, which is going to help you with that afternoon slump. And it's going to help with any food cravings. We want to have another 30 grams of protein at lunch. You don't want to let yourself get too hungry because you don't want to be snacky and reaching for things. And then you want to do the same at dinner. Now, I did say, you could be eating healthy foods, but gaining weight. What does that look like? I'm going to tell you what that looks like. That can look like, number one, not having enough at breakfast, not having enough at lunch, because we've been trained to undereat if we want to lose weight. But it can also look like, and this is very, very common, and tell me if you see yourself in this. And by the way, if you guys want, I did put together a free guide for you, Fat Loss Over 45, and you can go through, and it includes the top 3 things, or the first 3 things I do with each client when we start working together. And you can have that for free. Just comment or DM me the word guide, and I'll send that to you to help you out. So what I see a lot of women doing is, because we're trained to think less is more, and let's have all this discipline and lose all this weight. A lot of women won't eat a lot during the day, but what they are doing is snacking a little bit, picking at food, having a handful of nuts, healthy. Raw nuts are healthy, right? So you are eating healthy. Having some fruit, also healthy. Having a salad with lots of veggies, also healthy. But these foods, this way of eating is not geared to fat loss as women in perimenopause, because every time we pick at a food, even though it's healthy, what's happening is that in response, we have a blood sugar response. And when we have something, even if it's just a small handful of nuts, your body is raising its blood sugar. What happens when your body raises its blood sugar is then you have an insulin response. So insulin helps to get your food into your cells to be used as fuel. But if we're doing this all throughout the day, even though it's healthy, you're spiking blood sugar and insulin response constantly. So this is sending a signal to your body: store fat, store fat, store fat. So this creates a lot of confusion in women. And how do I know this? Because I speak to women all the time. And this is very, very, very common. They are very confused because they're like, I'm eating healthy. And I get it. And I listen to how they explain it. I'm like, yeah, technically healthy foods. I get it. But the way you're doing it is not for fat loss. It is literally for promoting fat storage, hence the frustration. What I would recommend instead is make sure you're eating enough at your meals so that you don't feel the need to be picking at little foods here and there. And then other women will say to me, I don't do that. I don't snack. I don't do anything. But when you bring some mindfulness to it and do it yourself, you may be saying, well, Stacey, doesn't apply to me because I don't really snack that much. Bring some awareness to your day. And a lot of women, and maybe it's not you, but a lot of women are really surprised to say, oh my gosh, I did not realize I was doing that. Like just picking a couple things here and there, grazing, whatever. It's giving a fat storage response, even though it might not be a lot of calories per se. It's the reaction that food is having within your body. It's a hormone signaling issue. It is not a calorie issue. Now, that being said, when you do pick at food throughout the day, that can also add up too, right? And you could potentially be eating a lot more than you think you are. Like a handful of nuts, for example, even though it's healthy, they can really pack a punch, and it's easy to overdo stuff like that. So anyway, let me know, comments below, if you find that helpful. Again, the reason a lot of women are frustrated and having a hard time for weight loss and perimenopause is because you're doing things that just don't work for this hormonal situation. But the good news is the way of eating to lose weight in this situation is actually a great way of eating. It's great for digestion. It's great for helping with sleep. It's great for helping to manage stress. It's great for energy levels. And it's great for keeping you feeling satiated, so you don't feel restrictive and you don't feel like you're starving and can't stick with it. Because the other thing too, it's not a diet. A diet has a beginning and an end. This is lifestyle things that you're implementing into your already busy life. So things that can work with it. Once you get into the swing of it, it actually becomes a lot easier. But sometimes starting new habits is not that easy, right? Like I have a lot of people say to me, no, I know what to do. So even everything I've just told you, what if you can't follow through? Well, that's where mindset and behavioral change comes in. Because to get a different result, you got to do different inputs. And to do that, a lot of times there can be a period of adjustment as we're installing these new habits into our life. The good news is, because they're not overly restrictive, they are much easier to keep long term. Anyway, I hope that helps you guys. I hope it helps to alleviate some frustration for you. If you're sitting there thinking nothing's going to work and weight gain's inevitable, it's not. And then the other thing is just be consistent. But you got to be consistent on the right things. Being consistent on the wrong things is just not going to get you anywhere. But when you know the right things and you implement them every day, over and over and over, it'll click. And you're going to feel a lot better for it. Anyway, and if you want the free guide where I lay out the first 3 things I do with every client for fat loss over 45 specific, comment guide or send me a private DM with the word guide, and I'll be happy to send that to you. Anyway, hope that helps. Have a great rest of your day. Bye. Thanks for listening. I hope you found this episode helpful. If so, please be sure to like and subscribe to be notified when new episodes are released. Episodes like this are released weekly for all things weight loss and wellness for the woman in perimenopause and menopause. And for other ways I can help you, please be sure to visit the show notes or visit my bio. Thanks for listening. Bye.